Hello, friends, and welcome to Wake Nation 21, the first fan fueled YouTube channel dedicated to everything Wake Forest athletics. My name is Josh Chilton, and I'm here with my brother and co host, Shane Chilton. Shane, this loss to NC State hurt for several reasons. First, just the way the game started and the rush of energy and excitement that we all felt after going up 14 to nothing very quickly with some explosive plays. Then the reality setting in about just how good CJ Bailey and this pack offense are, and that this was going to be a battle to by the end, the total demoralization as the Deeks could not stop the run on defense or muster even a first down for what felt like the entire second half of the game. However, after a few days of reflection, rewatching the tape, I have to admit, like NC State has the potential to be a top five team in the ACC this season. CJ Bailey, as a true sophomore, is on the trajectory. Not saying this is going to happen, but he's on the trajectory to become the first overall pick in the 2027 NFL draft. And one loss does not make a season. On the other hand, some underlying issues with this team cannot be ignored, and I'm unsure if we have the personnel to address them. So, with all that, Shane, how you doing this morning and afternoon for you, morning for me, and what are some of your initial thoughts about this game?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking. So it really was the tale of two halves. There was a lot of excitement in the first half. Anytime you start a game with a kick return for a touchdown, you're going to get jacked about the game. Offense came out hot, scoring pretty quickly right thereafter. And defense was looking good in the first half. And, if you just watched the first half, you would have thought maybe we would have, run away with the game. But you got to play two halves in football. Second half was, clearly wasn't up to snuff for us. As you said, CJ Bailey played really well. Hollywood Smothers played really well. Scott played well for them. Jolly played well for them. So they had a lot of players that stepped up, even beyond like the premier players, I guess you would say, like secondary players. And the defense played much better than they had played in some of the tape that I had watched prior to them coming to Winston.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough. I thought we were pretty evenly matched. I thought it was going to come down to the end. In some ways, it did, but they turned on offense in a way that we just couldn't contain, which was a little bit surprising because coming to the game, I really thought our defense was our strength, and they still are, but they certainly showed some gaps that we have on defense that Coach Dickert and staff can tighten up. And so, yeah, it was a disappointing loss.
Yeah, there were some, breakdowns defensively. I will give them a little slack with the lack of offensive production and getting worn down by the end. We were tied going into the fourth quarter, but just not being able to put anything together offensively was just devastating. I still believe we have a good defense. They did not play a perfect game by any means, but yeah, it was a tough one. But let's uh, let's get into. We're gonna have a few slides, but before we do that, let's just go through some of the box score a little bit. Just first downs, 24 to 12. third down efficiency and fourth down efficiency, they were 2 for 2. Total yards, they surpassed us by almost 100. It was interesting that Robbie actually yardage wise outpassed CJ Bailey, but Bailey's lack of making any mistakes and just going through his progressions in a much more calculated manner. Completion percentage for Robbie wasn't that bad, but the 2 interceptions were very costly. The rushing numbers just, you're not going to win games. Losing the rushing battle 205-59. You're just not. And our rushing attempts were literally half of their rushing attempts, and our
Right.
yards per rush were half.
And Demond
Um,
having 35 total yards, carrying the ball. It's
yeah.
never going to win with that.
Yeah, and it's not like Damon magically forgot how to run the ball. So we'll talk about that as we get through. They dominated us on time of possession, as you can see here, 38-21. And then if we go to the box score, Shane, you want to just talk through things that stick out to you with this box score?
Sure. Yeah, so like I said, I think the main thing that sticks out is Demond, 12 carries, 35 yards. He did have a touchdown. But in order for us to win against the good opponent like NC State, he's definitely got to have more rushing yards. And the rush game always opens up the pass game. So, if you can't get the run going, you're going to struggle in your passing game.
And that's exactly what NC State did to us in the second half is they used their powerful offensive line and the ability to create some space for Hollywood Smothers, who doesn't, like Demond, does not need much to just grind us down. And then once we can't stop the run, CJ Bailey, if you have a quarterback like that with an effective run game, you're in a lot of trouble.
Right. And another thing I noticed is so Scott for NC State, their backup running back, had
He was a beast.
had a really good game.
Yeah.
And so no one has established themselves kind of as a good two or backup running back for us to maybe give Demond a little bit of help or just to kind of come in and maybe change the dynamics a little bit. And I think our rushing game is also kind of hurting from that because, of course, we have Barnes if we want to, bring him on a sweep or something like that. But, it would be nice to see a little bit of help from another back, kind of stepping up and but I mean, shout out to Scott. He had a great game. He was a big difference in that second half.
Yeah, and the thunder and lightning approach of Smothers and Scott. Smothers is the shifty, quick, Damon Claiborne type back. We have a back on our roster who has been a Jaden Scott like player for us in the past, and his name is Tate Carney.
Yeah,
The reasons we don't use
can't figure that one out, man. I mean, I just don't get like zero burn.
I don't understand that.
There must be a reason.
It seems like there would be a great complementary approach, but we are not taking that approach, obviously. I was happy we held former Demon Deacon Wesley Grimes to only 3 catches for 19 yards. But Rogers made some great plays. Jackson with the touchdown catch was, that was a beautiful throw by Bailey as the pressure was about to hit him and throwing that NFL throw to Jackson. And Jolly just being a beast of a tight end.
Yeah, he had a great game.
On our side, Chris Barnes had the big catch on the that deep over, and not much else in terms of receiving. We got Demond involved. We were trying to get him touches. 8 receptions. If I was playing fantasy PPR, I would be okay that Damon only had 30 some yards if I didn't care about the team because he had 8 catches and that would add up to fantasy points. But that doesn't matter for the Demon Deacons. And 8 receptions for 33 yards. We weren't able to get him the space even when we tried to pass it to him. You
Yeah.
know, I liked Falai. I liked his catch on the play action. I think we need to use him more. I'm, Sterling Burkhalter. I hope he doesn't watch this. He's just the definition to me of a average receiver. And there's some other guys that I wish, kind of like with Carney, I wish we would give Karate Brenson, Reginald Vick Jr., even Jeremiah Melvin, who had 1 catch. Kind of wish we would give
Mm.
them some chances uh,
Yeah.
to
That's
be
a
a
good point.
little more dynamic in the passing game. Defensively, what do you want to talk about? We had 1 sack as a team. We did have 10 tackles for loss. I thought Dylan Hazen played a great game, and Nick, as always. Do you have any thoughts on just defensively?
Yeah, I mean the top three, tacklers aren't a surprise. Nick Anderson, Dylan Hazen, and Langston Hardy. Braylon Johnson played a good game. He had 7 tackles. It's good to see him stepping up. And
Aiden Hall again.
yeah, Aiden Hall, Trayvon West. So, some of the secondary, I like to see their numbers increased. I think that's a bit of a function of how good NC State's passing game is, unfortunately. But at least they kind of got in there and were making some tackles. I don't think the defensive line played very well, or the NC State offensive line played very well, at least in the second half. It didn't seem like we were getting the pressure on Bailey that we needed to slow him down. Jaden Loving did have 3 tackles.
They screwed him on the sack, man. They gave him a TFL,
Yeah,
but the quarterback was running the ball instead of dropping back as a passer. I wanted his sack again as the biggest Jaden Loving fan. Uh,
yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, that should have been a sack.
I wanted that sack.
Think I want to see Devon more kind of ball hawking. I've seen him be kind of strong in tackling, but would like to see him kind of get a little more active with maybe some picks or stuff like that. Afalava, Lovovision, and Kursky. I think all 3 of them could have played a better game. They played really good games in the prior 2. So
Yeah. So Scott thinks it's time to see what Deshaun Purdy can do. His height may be an advantage over Robbie when teams blitz or get to the quarterback quickly.
yeah,
Scott, I get that. I think I need at least one more game out of Robbie. Like, the thing we lose if we bench Robbie at this point, and I know his body language a lot of the times can be very unsettling. If we take Robbie out, Deshaun Purdy, at least from what we know about his past at Charlotte, has no running threat ability to speak of. Now, he may have enough to be escapable in the pocket and maneuver in the pocket, but we're going to lose that aspect of the running game. So if Deshaun is a, you know, head above passer, if he is a way more consistent passer, that trade-off could work. But I'm not ready to give up on Robbie yet. I know he's can be frustrating at times, But we appreciate the comment. Obviously, Shane, do you have any thoughts about that comment from Scott?
Yeah, I'm a little more leaning towards Scott's opinion, to be honest. I think, I mean, we haven't seen much of Purdy. He did have a touchdown pass against Western Carolina, and it was a good looking throw. Um, yeah, I mean,
It's tough. It's
especially
tough.
in that second half with some of, and we talked about it, Josh, like some of these reads, and when he's just staring down the receiver he wants to go to, and then it obviously gets picked. I
Yeah.
mean, that's happened multiple times now. We're starting to kind of develop a pattern there of, not being able to look off the secondary. I think he's got a good arm. I think he can certainly make some great passes. He showed that in the first half. Um, but yeah, but I do hear your point, Josh, of losing that running threat, because he certainly is a running threat. He's had a rushing touchdown, I think, every game that we've had so far.
Yeah, he's a guaranteed rushing touchdown per game. I mean,
Yeah,
that is one factor. It'll be interesting to see over the next 2 weeks. We've got this bye. What happens over the next 2 weeks? And if a change is made, now might be the time to do it, considering you
that's
have
a
two
good point.
weeks of preparation. So we'll
Right.
see how that goes. I'm not quite there yet, but I get why some people are there. And Deshaun is a talented player. It's just these trade-offs that we have to think about when we're making these decisions. And I'm glad that I'm a fan and not Coach Dicker, because that is a tough decision that's coming down the pipeline soon.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the slideshow a little bit. So, like we've talked about already, I mean, I don't think we need to reiterate a whole lot more from this slide. We've got another comment coming in, but we'll get through that. We'll pull you up in a minute, Blue Ridge. We got you. But yeah, tale of two halves, 34-24. The total yardage, they were very balanced, almost even with passing and rushing. Ours was completely flipped. It was only passing and very limited rushing. Those two interceptions were very costly, even if I don't put the first one quite on Robbie. The second one certainly was. We got some pressure, but Purdy, God, like that one play, he just like or not Purdy, CJ Bailey, he just switched the whole side of the field, and it was just like, God, this guy is just like elusive and smart as hell, and it was rough. 10 tackles for loss is nothing to sneeze at, which I think our defense is going to be okay. Like, I'm not particularly worried about the defense. Let's see what Blue Ridge community or commentary has to say. Blue Ridge, you've been a great follower of the channel too. I just want to shout you out. I'm thinking there's Robbie at least starts against Georgia Tech, but if that's a similar loss and then we lose to Virginia Tech, with the way they've been playing, definitely expect the quarterback change by then. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, even if the same mistakes are repeated against Georgia Tech, like after 2 weeks of preparation, like I'm okay making the switch then too. I mean, and I'm pulling for Robbie because potential wise with his legs, like he could open up a lot of things, and we need him. Like, we need the best version of him without the mistakes. But Shane, do you have any thoughts on kind of what Blue Ridge commentaries like timeline for the decision making, our next two games and how that might work out?
That sounds right. I mean, obviously it's a different situation if that series of events happens. You almost have to make a change at that point.
Yeah.
And so, this is, I think, Robbie's first, no disrespect to Kennesaw State or Western Carolina, but this is Robbie's first real opponent. And
Real test, yeah.
so, I think maybe Dickert has that in his mind as well, especially with a solid first half. He played a very bad fourth quarter, I would say. Robbie did. But so he, 2.5 good quarters and one, stinky one. I
If I
guess.
had to guess, I would say he's going to take these 2 weeks and he's going to give Robbie another shot at it because of the highs of Robbie. When he's playing well, he can be really dangerous and a really good weapon for us. And having three dangerous runners and weapons like Robbie, Demond, and Chris Barnes, that can be pretty potent. So that's my guess if I had to guess. Um, but we'll see what happens. I agree. We totally went away from Demond in the run against State. All it takes is one big run. And, we're going to talk about the offensive line here in just a second, Scott. But I do think that's a great point. Like, when you're struggling to get first downs, like you can't, even if you are having running plays that are going for 0 yards, going for 1 yard, going for a loss, like you have to kind of, as long as you're within one score, you have to, and even two scores with a lot of time, even a full quarter left, you have to give Demond a chance to have even the slightest hole open up because he's such a home run threat. 12 carries for him or however many it was is just unacceptable in any scenario. Robbie is not built to play comeback football, pass every down football. I just don't think he's built like that. So great comment from Scott. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, and that's kind of a scary comment that Robbie's not built for that, but I think it's true, unfortunately, because that's where most good college football games are won down the stretch. And so, yeah, I think that we tried to get him going in the passing game. Obviously, he had, a certain number of, he had 8 receptions. It was only for 33 yards, but so we were trying to get him going in kind of the screen or, bubble kind of situations. And NC State was not having it at all. They were just reading it and getting to the ball immediately. And, it wasn't opening up for us. So,
Their defense showed up in a big way that I did not expect, like especially in the second half, and that's going to get us into our stock ups and stock downs. Once we get to stock down, we're going to talk about some things because we got some things to talk about that does not have to do with players. That has to do with coaching. All right, so stock up, Chris Barnes. You know, just the way he started the game. I mean, some of you may know I'm in a wheelchair. I almost fell out of my wheelchair. Like I was like, yeah! I was so excited. And then that huge 70-yard reception, just continue to get him the ball. It doesn't always have to be like, screens or jet sweeps. Like, no, use him all over the field, across the middle, deep overs, all over the field. He needs to be used. First half offense, 24 points in a first half is really good against any ACC opponent. That is something.
all of our points.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, all of our points. But that's a great half of football. That shows what we are capable of offensively. It
Right.
shows what we're capable of. Robbie's first half, like I thought overall, like as a passer, like his first pass to Burkhalter in a tight window, the accuracy on the deep over when Barnes went for 70 yards. He had the play action pass to the tight end, Falai. He had some good throws and he had some good runs. The rushing touchdown, I thought the pick six, he should learn from that to just throw that into the dirt at Chris Barnes' feet and don't ever try to make that tight window throw again. But I think it was a fluke that the defensive end was so had such an ability to catch that ball. Like it was just like it was the ball was on him and he didn't even know it, but he still called it and took it to the house. It was crazy. And then Coach Dickert's pregame speech, like ESPN gave us a little behind the scenes locker room pregame speech. I'm just like an all-time fan of great pregame speeches and just his demeanor, his this is what we work for. You play for each other. That whole rah rah rah. I think part of the reason we started out so hot was because of the pregame
Mm.
speech. Now, pregame speeches, as far as they go, in my opinion, are worth something, but they are not sustainable in terms of how a team is going to execute the entire game. So they
Need a good
serve.
half game speech too.
Yeah, you need a halftime speech. You need a every time the defense comes off the field or the
Yeah.
offensive comes off the field. That's what I did when I coached Pop Warner. Like I was every time I was emphasizing, the two most important things each player needed to do and pumping them up. Like I did not stop that, but you're dealing with more advanced athletes, older young men, so it's a little different. But anything on the stock up that I didn't talk about, Shane?
No, I mean, this was a generous, list, but I mean, we did play a good first half. It's easy to get lost in that with a painful loss like that game was, but I do think it's important to focus on the positives and try to. I think Coach Dickert, even at the beginning of the season and some of the preseason interviews, he talked about how focusing on what you're good at and improving on that is actually one of the things that he likes to do. And I actually like that approach. So just finding your strengths and turning your strengths into, monsters. That's a really good way to do it. And so, yeah, I think Chris Barnes, he came out of nowhere. I think for both of us, we did not expect him. We weren't able to go to any of the preseason practices or anything like that, so we weren't able to see him. I'm sure there were other people who, after
Saw
watching him practice, saw it coming for sure. But what a talent Chris Barnes is. So really happy with him. The only other thing I could think of is like our defense is still a stock up, but not the second half, not the fourth quarter. They weren't a stock up, but like generally speaking, they probably
going against a future NFL. I think CJ Bailey is a future first overall pick in the NFL draft, and I think Hollywood Smothers is an NFL running back, and so they gave up 34 points. They really only gave up 20 whatever 7 points because the pick six. You know, the defense I'm not that worried about. I'm really just not that worried about. Stock down. everything that happened after the 4 minute and 4 second mark of the second quarter when we kicked the field goal for the final points we were going to put on the board.
once they fix that barbecue smoker,
Once the
starting
smoke
to
had
come downhill.
Once the smoke had cleared, everything that happened after that was just ugly and downhill and just bad. And that gets me to my biggest worry about this team is the offensive line play. I just did not see an offensive line that could consistently hold their run blocks. And I mentioned it as a key going into the game because I was checking those PFF scores and I know they're not perfect. But what I see on tape is, especially at the guard positions, some guys who are not space pushing beasts, like in any respect.
You
And
called this one. I have to say, I was more bullish on the offensive line, but I can really see what you were talking about after this game.
And Scott says we also quit throwing to Chris Barnes in the second half, and we were getting it to Hernandez. He seemed to be the main target in the second half.
He's less
Just
explosive, but
yeah,
I
like
mean, he's got good hands, but he's less
he's a
explosive,
good player. He's a good player, but Chris Barnes has shown us to be a great player.
right?
So get the ball to your best players. Defensive run fits and edge contain, like the two times that Smothers got loose in the first half. One was Gatkuth just had the edge sitting there waiting on him, no one blocking him, and he's
Mm,
just kind of just sat back instead of setting the edge. And
mm,
then when we did set the edge, the linebacker flow, to when they're pulling their guards and we're not able to flow and get to those gaps, and they seal off the end and just create that little space that we're talking about. That was a problem for us in the run defense, being completely outcoached in terms of the halftime adjustments. Like
yeah, they
whatever
got bodied by Scott in the second half. That was if Scott was super physical against our linebackers and defensive backs. So that was another thing I noticed because it's really like in the fourth and third quarter you're starting to get tired, and that's actually when it's most important to show physicality and keep the energy high. It's pretty easy to be hyped in the first drive, and so I really kind of look out for that. And so I didn't like the physicality that we weren't popping in the second half.
We lost the line of scrimmage from that 4 minute and 4 second mark. And even at points before, we lost it on both sides. And Blue Ridge commentary again, Robbie put Hernandez in a couple bad spots with throws too,
Yeah, he
where he
did.
had to try to make a catch. And it's the hospital balls is what
Yeah.
they're called. And receivers don't appreciate the hospital balls. And again, that's just something, Robbie. If we're gonna be
Got to be a symbiotic relationship.
yeah, if we're
Wide
gonna
receivers
be
aren't going to appreciate that.
if we're gonna be a successful offense this year, that we've got to root that out, and just the inability to run the ball. Is it the offensive line? Is it the scheme? I tend to lean toward it's a personnel issue on the offensive line.
Mm,
Clinton Richard, after the first game, was our highest graded run blocking asset, and he went down, and so we've just got to make some tough decisions and evaluations over these next 2 weeks, because just the inability to run the ball. If you can't run the ball and you're making, I don't think it matters if it's Purdy or Ashford. If any quarterback really beyond a CJ Bailey or like John Mateer, like if you're not one of those guys and you're just completely one dimensional, you're gonna struggle. You
mm.
are just going to struggle. So that's our stock downs. These were the keys to winning the game that we talked about going into the game during the preview last week. And so we said it's going to be a strength on strength game. So what we meant by that was State's offense is their strength, and our strength is our defense. Hold NC State to less than 24 points. I was right on my prediction about how many points Wake would score, but I was completely wrong about how many points State would score. We cannot hold them to under 24 points. So that's an
I was
X.
way off.
Well, I mean, NC State is good. Like I said, like I think they're you've got Clemson, Miami, uh, who's the third team that's really good? I know SMU, but there's
Florida
one
State.
more. Florida State. Yeah, Florida State. You got those top three. But after that, SMU, Georgia Tech, like NC State is right up there
Yeah.
in that class, in my opinion. So the sky is not falling in terms of losing this game. Like I really want to emphasize that the sky is not falling during this game. And you and I were talking before about Clausen's first three games
Oh yeah.
as the head coach of Wake, and
Yeah, let's get in the
those
time machine back to 2014.
yeah, if we go back to 2014, Clausen's first three games was a loss to Louisiana Monroe, a win against a FCS opponent, and then another loss to Utah State. Jordan Love led, no, that was later on, but I lost to Utah State.
Sorry,
So
we're going pretty far back there.
yeah, it's going far back. It's hard to remember everything. The offensive line must win the line of scrimmage. And I should have said it on both sides. I
Yeah,
should have said,
it should have been the whole list.
yeah, the trenches, we have to win in the trenches. And that's another X. We did not win in the trenches. We lost in the trenches. CJ Bailey versus Robbie Ashford. I was not asking Robbie to be CJ Bailey. Like I knew coming in, CJ Bailey is a superior passing quarterback to Robbie, but I was hoping that Robbie could play, comparably, or
Yeah,
you know,
competitive.
competitively, use his rushing ability, just make smart decisions, just manage us into keeping it close. And he did
Yeah,
that for the first
man.
half. He did that for half a game. But second half, they shut down the run, and it just showed that that's not who he is right now. And we don't know if Deshaun is that either. Like kind of like I said. And then Demond and Chris both needed to surpass 100 yards for us to win. Chris
Yeah,
Barnes had 99 yards on his first kickoff return, so he was already almost there, and then a 70-yard catch. So he was totally fine, but we should have got him the ball more. And
yeah.
Demond was well under 100. What are your thoughts on this, or any other just keys to why we lost?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were spot on, honestly, with these keys to the game, and the us not meeting that level is the reason why we lost. I really think that for except for like Famoe on the line, I mean, he's obviously a stud. Kailani, he's a captain, man. And I know the center is kind of a little bit different, but at the same time, it takes all five. So just want to see more out of the offensive line. I don't know if there are pieces, on the bench that we could try out some different people. If there were, they probably would have shown it in practice a bit. But maybe
I'm wish casting, man. I'm wish casting here at the bottom.
maybe we got a diamond in the rough somewhere. But when you have a running back like Demond, when you have a talent like a Chris Barnes, maybe we need to go back to the slow mesh. I mean,
I think it's too late for that.
implement a whole new offense after the third game. There's no more sign of confidence than that, right? So, but
So
right now
my
I gotta say I'm missing it a bit.
so we scored 24 points in the first half. We can be okay on offense. I'm gonna just go ahead and throw that out there. We can be okay, but the offensive line is my biggest worry. My suggestion for the coaching staff, and you're right, Shane, You and I were not on those practice fields. Do not have like press passes. We're just fans who are running our mouths.
Right.
But my suggestion is give Offit, Jamarian Kennedy, Devin McCray. I don't know which of those three, but Kennedy and Offit are the two that, stick out to me as 320 to 330, 40 pound plus monsters. They are monsters.
Yeah.
And they may give up something in the pass protection game. I think that might be the reason. But if we
If our
have them
pass
on,
protection game is like this,
yeah,
it's
like if our
rough.
pass protection isn't going to be that great anyway, why not get these big old boys that we got who have a lot of size, strength, and muscle and really try to get this power winning at the line of scrimmage going. I don't know if Offit is ready as a true freshman. I don't know if Kennedy's ready as a redshirt sophomore. I don't know what they've done in practice, but just their size profile, and Offit's bench press numbers.
Mm,
Like that's all I got to go on for this.
yeah.
But something's got to give with the offensive line, or it's going to be a long season. Any thoughts? Any more thoughts on that, Shane? Or we
No,
good?
I think that's a good summarization. And obviously we didn't get the result we wanted in this game, and it seems like a lot of the fans out there feel it is a quarterback issue, which it is, and it seems like we are, focused on the offensive line, which it is. So it can be both of those things, but I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know what um, shifts need to take place or players need to replace who. But I think the one thing that is clear is that in order for us to be competitive in the ACC this year and to have a winning record, a strong winning record, we've got to improve in both of those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Scott says here, 2 weeks to make changes. That's the good news. We are Wake Forest fans. We know what it's like to suffer, but we also
Gluttons.
know what it's like to not give up and to keep pressing on as fans of these teams. Like you're not if you're a Wake Forest fan, you're built in the dark. Like you are not a fair weather fan. You're the real deal. We've got 2 weeks to make changes. I think that's a positive. Georgia Tech's got to play. They're playing Clemson right now. Don't know how they're doing. Then they got another game against Temple. So we got 2 weeks, and they're going to be playing. Who knows who could get injured?
Georgia Tech is up actually,
Yeah.
13-7.
So Georgia Tech could be the real deal. And so Saturday, September 27th, that is our date with Georgia Tech. And, we have 2 weeks to work. We have 2 weeks to recover our bodies after playing 2 games in 5 days and to improve and to figure this thing out. And the Wake basketball content is coming in October. And if
Yeah.
you enjoy this content, help us reach 100 subscribers. Our most loyal people who watch us live, like put this on your socials, like help us grow this thing. Because we really put passion into it. We're not ever gonna make a career or money out of covering Wake Forest athletics because of the size of the school. The YouTube fan base just will never be big enough. We do this because we love it and we love Wake Forest sports. We do this as a passion project, And so we appreciate every like, every view, every subscriber. It just means the world to us. And Blue Ridge commentary is right. If GT is beating Clemson right now, it's going to be tough. We've got the next test is going to be tough. And we have 2 weeks to prepare for that. Haynes King and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets ain't going to be no joke, but we're going to persevere. And I'm going to believe, as my computer keeps beeping at us, reminding us to like and subscribe, that we're going to be okay, that things are going to be okay. This is the first season of a new era of Wake Forest football. I think we have a talented team. There's a lot of talent on this team. And if we can focus on getting the O line right, getting the ball in the right playmakers' hands, Claiborne and Barnes must be the focus, like Scott said. I think we're going to be okay. I think our defense is good enough. We're going to be okay. Any final thoughts, Shane?
I just want to thank Scott Jones and Blue Ridge Commentary for participating today. I know me and Josh really appreciate you guys, and you've made comments in some of our past videos, and just your continued support is really appreciated. It was, I think it's good to look back at, kind of how Clausen did in his first 3 games and compare and contrast. Clausen was, one of our most successful coaches of all time. I think Dicker is in that same type of mold. I know it's early, but I have confidence in the guy for whatever reason. I think it's just the way he carries himself. And so, it was a tough loss. Like I said in our last video, this was a tone setter. It was an extremely important game for us, and we didn't come up where we wanted to. But it did show kind of where we are against the type of opponents we'll be playing against for the rest of the year. And the good news is that we're not like bottom feeders. I don't think that we are, the worst of the worst in the ACC. Not even close to that. I think
we have a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think we're going to be super competitive. This game was a competitive game until the fourth quarter. And we made some stupid plays and we made some stupid mistakes. Got to clean that up. But I think there's still a lot of reason to be encouraged by this season. Georgia Tech is going to be a really tough opponent, like Blue Ridge Commentary said. I completely agree with that. Haynes King is, one of the best players, in the country. He might be better than CJ Bailey. I don't know. CJ Bailey showed a lot against us. It's a long season. But so we got 2 weeks to game plan. We got 2 weeks to rest. So we'll see what changes are made. And, we'll give, the other thing is the next video will be a preview for that Georgia Tech game. So, guys, look forward to that as well. Because we'll be digging into that.
Yeah, and we may take a week to rest and recover as well. You might get a few shorts from us, so look out for that. But you might not get a full video this next week. I'll be working on some basketball stuff to make sure we're ready for that in October. But we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. As always, go Deeks.
Go Deeks.
Signing out, baby.